Hey guys, here we are, the Quiggin Out MMA Podcast. I know you've missed us. You've missed us so much, and I decided who better to bring on than my good buddy and recent Bellator MMA Lightweight signee who's fighting like a month and a half from now, Aalon Cruz. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How you been?
Pretty good. So I wanted to jump right into that because you get to fight on this Bellator card that's in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Like, talk about how amazing that is for you and, getting that opportunity right off the bat.
Yeah, it was funny. I was telling my girls, like, I don't really know any other reason I'd go to Hawaii, unless it was like our honeymoon. That'd be the only other reason. So now we get to go for non-honeymoon reasons. So, maybe we'll make a trip back there later on. But it's cool to I've never been there. I don't really travel a lot. I'm not really like the biggest person on going, on vacation, like to travel somewhere and have fun unless I'm doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So Hawaii was just like a huge change that, like, to me, that's so like left field from like what I'm used to doing, because my agent knows, like, I don't want to fight out of the country. Like, I've never been out of the country, but I just don't want to travel to fight. But so Hawaii is probably the closest thing I'll get to that for now.
That's interesting. I mean, that's a very unique perspective because a lot of people use fighting to travel the world.
Mm-hmm.
So you think maybe Hawaii will change your mind. Maybe you'll get there and be like, you know what, maybe I need to expand more. Or your girl's gonna be like, we need to do this more often. Like,
yeah, it's kind of it's a baby step. It's a baby step.
Well, I mean, talk about the signing to Bellator. So, we went through the Contender Series. You had that amazing flying knee, which, nobody's ever going to forget that. Like, that's probably top 10. Like, I'm not even going to lie. That's not, anything crazy. But, then we have the rough patch of the UFC. And I think,
Yep.
You had I don't like talking about it, but I have to. And I know everybody brings it up.
Mm-hmm.
But you really didn't let that stop you. You went right to Fury, got the 2 wins. But you really had like 5 fights with Fury between like what was canceled and what was.
Oh my gosh, dude, it was a whole roller coaster. Because, originally our contract with Fury was it was either 12 months or 4 fights. Obviously, I only fought twice, and it was really hard to get those two, because when I took the first fight in December of 2022, no, I'm sorry, 2021, I think I was ready to go back in like June or July, after I recovered from my last UFC fight. And then, my agent was trying to get me with somebody like Fury, but it was just taking a little longer. And then we got that fight, and it was good to get back on the win board. And then I was supposed to fight like right after that in February, or no, March. I'm sorry, March.
Yeah.
And I was going to fight Derek Campos. Derek Campos pulled out the Thursday of the fight. Like, literally, I'm sitting on my couch, about to leave, about to, like, almost like head to the airport to leave, to go to Texas. And then the promoter was like, "Hey man," he's like, "we can't find anybody. We try whatever." He's like, "I don't want you flying out here for with no fight." So I thought hopefully we could like push that Derek Campos fight, to next month, but I guess his injury was too bad, I guess. Which would have been great because he's a Bellator vet too. He's like 25-6 or something. He's got, he's been around. He's fought the who's who, so it would have been a really good test for me, before signing with another organization. And then I got Charles Cheeks, in April, a month later, and then from there. Oh no, I'm sorry. I fought. No, that was Charles Cheeks. And then since then, I was I think I recuperated for like a month or so because I had some injuries. I'm always injured, but I had some injuries to deal with. And then I was pretty much good to go. And the thing is, like, they couldn't find anybody to fight me. Like, each of those times when I fought Matt, the kid before Charles, and leading up to Charles, I might have went through like at least 8 or 10 different opponents for both of those fights just to get those fights. And then leading up to November, I must have went through like 7 or 8 different opponents. We finally got Rashad Evans's godson, Devin. I don't remember his name. Devin something.
Yeah,
he was on the Contender Series. Yes,
Yeah.
and he was on the Contender Series. I was like, okay, cool. This would be a great fight for me. Like, he was on the Contender Series, fought for LFA. He pulls out fight week. So then I'm like, all right. So Vince wanted to my striking coach, Vince wanted to just push it back to the next month. He's like, how injured is he? And we never heard anything back. So that kind of fell out. But I told him, throw me on that December 10th card. So we jumped on that card. So it was about 6.5 weeks later. Now, mind you, I've been in a camp for the past 14 weeks leading into this fight. So I'm just revving at this super high level for so long. Um, and they never end up finding an opponent for me. Everybody turned me I'm talking about Contender Series guys, aside from Devin, Contender Series guys who have really good records, like 7-1, stuff like that, and they all just turned me down. One of them that turned me down already, that was supposed to fight for, or was trying to fight for November, he offered to fight me at the end of February. And I was like, dude, I've been in camp for 14 weeks. I'm not waiting another 8 weeks to fight
No.
you. Like,
I mean, I
it's
know
not
that'd
worth
be
it.
like super camp, but
Yeah. So, I talked to my agent and I was like, dude, what are our options? Because, my whole goal was to get back into the UFC. Um, and he told me like I would need like 3 fights, like 3 finishes, probably. Which I completed 2 of those and just didn't get the other 2. And, he said, even if we get another finish somewhere else, he's like, it's still kind of 50-50. So, and I'm tired of wasting my time, like my body, can't handle, you know, a ton more damage or, you know, mileage, I guess. So I was like, well, let's start making some money, man. Like, let's, what's up with Bellator? What's up with PFL? He told me different options and like what the contracts look like. And, I like Bellator better. So that's what we ended up going with.
And it's weird what PFL has done recently. And I'm like, a lot of people, kind of had, shit on the fact that like, oh, their fighters are just going there for money. And I was like, yes, they are.
Yeah.
Like, there's
Yeah.
no question about it. You're not
For
going over
sure.
there going, I'm so happy I'm fighting number 47 in the world. So happy for that. You're happy that you're making a shit ton of money. And realistically, like 20 years ago, if they had been around and had been able to do that, you would have seen a shift a long time ago. And I think we
Right.
ended up producing much better fighters because you have so many people like yourself who are still working,
Yep.
who are still supplementing their fighting career by having a quote unquote real job. And PFL is giving people the opportunity to get rid of that and
Yep.
focus 100% on fighting. Like, think about fighters who could have spent 100% of their time, even yourself, 100% of your time just training and getting
And
ready for a fight.
recovering. Yeah.
Yeah, and recovering. Exactly.
That's why you
So,
see when you see the guys that are like making decent money towards the top, like the top fives, or the champs and whatnot, like they just get really good. They get better, right?
mhm.
Because all they do 24/7, like they have the funds to just, you know, whatever, put the money into their diet. Because I mean, people don't realize food costs a lot of money, especially if you're trying to eat healthy for an entire camp.
Especially now.
You know, right? So they can pay for their food, they can pay all these trainers, they can pay for all these recovery sessions, like the massages, everything. And you just see like they're always going to stay in that top area. Now, obviously, it's because they train hard and they're very good, but when that's the only thing you have to focus on, that's where you really start to get good.
Yeah.
And it's just like when Demetrius, when he fought Dominic Cruz, and he lost, he was still working a full-time job. And then that was the fight that Matt Hume told him, "Yo, you need to quit your job and just do this full time." And then Mighty Mouse just went, "Psh."
Yep. And that's the thing is that any aspect of it, not just fighting, photography, like whatever you're dedicating your life to, if you're only able to give it 20%,
Mhm.
you're not going to get that full output. And you're right, the fighters do get better because they're talented, but at the same time, when you have the ability to do all those things and not have to worry about, oh, I need to get to work tomorrow at 5 a.m. So, you know,
Yep.
those concerns. So talk a little bit about, because anybody who doesn't know you, we've known each other for a long time. I've watched you fight, for years in the regional Tampa area, going up and, getting to see you get that chance on the Contender Series and everything else, and now fighting for Bellator. Bellator just had Fedor fight, and everybody's, upset about that because that fight really shouldn't have happened. He should have retired probably a long time ago, but
For sure.
you're getting to be in the same organization as that. So, I see it as a step forward, and I really like your output where you're like, you got 2 wins in under 5 minutes. So combined, it was under 5 minutes. That's pretty impressive right out of the gate. I think the second fight might have been in the second round. I might be off on my timing. Who knows?
Yeah, it was in the second round, but still, either way.
But let's say under 10 minutes then. That makes me look
definitely under 10 minutes.
So, I kind of like the mentality you have of, hey, I'm not getting any younger. I've been in camp this entire time. Like, it's time for me to shine. So, like, what was it like to make that decision to go to Bellator? And then where do you see this taking your career?
Yeah, to be honest, it was kind of like, it was awesome. It's like a bittersweet type of thing, right? Because, my whole, like, since I was like 15 or 16 and I started wrestling, and I was watching UFC back in the, like, T. Ortiz versus Ken Shamrock, like that whole feud. That's when like I came into it. And my whole goal and, how I saw my career going was going to be in the UFC. Like, that was it. Like, I never even considered Bellator. PFL wasn't around, but like any other organizations, I never considered any of them. Like, it's coming up. It was always going to be the UFC. Like, I'll do what I got to do. I'll wait however I need, how long, beat how many people I need to get to the UFC. And then, obviously I tried to get back in, and it just wasn't working out. And, I mean, I like being in Bellator now. I mean, I haven't fought with them yet, but I've never heard bad things about, like, the staff and Scott Coker and, everybody at the Bellator team. I've never heard bad things about anything from them. And so, and what I hear is, it sounds like they possibly care about the fighters a little more than, the UFC would, right? So, it like, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't want to go back to the UFC, and Bellator was kind of a second choice for me.
It's honest though.
But yeah, I mean, man, they're starting my payoff more than I did with the UFC. I can have sponsors now and make more extra money, on my shorts and my shirt and everything like that. So I don't know. It just seems like there's more freedom, in Bellator. I think you can do more things. Like, people like to do crazy walkouts, like, I don't do that, but it's just cool to have the option. It's cool, like, if I wanted to walk out and do something different, I could do that, and Bellator's down with it.
Yeah. That was the best thing ever. You're like, I want to do crazy walk. I mean, I don't do that, but
yeah. I mean, back in the day, like, I used to watch Pride a lot, and you watch out, Anderson Silva and Vanderlei, and they always had their gloves, and they do this little weird wrist twist when they walk out, and it was always the Rude Sandstorm every time. And now it's just the meme song.
Well, and it's funny because we had talked about this before. I didn't think there was going to be such a good segue, but we were talking about when we had Enson Inoue on the show, and we talked about Igor Verchenchkin, and one of the fights where he literally hits the guy in the corner, the guy's falling, and he punches him 3 more times. And we're talking about how, like, incredible and Pride was, and Igor was like 5'10". He was a tiny heavyweight back then.
Yeah.
And Ensign said, "Oh, I was there for that fight, and I was sitting next to Igor's opponent's girlfriend or fiance, and she was screaming, 'He's dead! He's dead! Oh my God, he's dead!'" And I just went,
"That's dark."
Oh, I was like, I can't even imagine what that would have been like to watch, like, live now. I'm like, ugh. But no, those are all Pride fights, and Scott Coker is really trying to, he tried it with Strikeforce, and now, like, the Bellator and Risen, like the combinations that they have, where I think Bellator wiped the floor with them the last time around at Versus on New Year's. But he's really trying to do that cross promotional thing, and I don't understand why so many organizations are so against it anymore. because we're in a new age. You know, you need
Yeah.
to do something. You need to open that narrative where these fighters can fight the best in the world and prove like, hey, my guy's the best.
Right.
And I think it comes down to, well, what if my guy isn't the best?
Exactly. Because, Dana, he'll talk about it all the time at interviews. Like, these are the best, fighters in the world. Like, he'll talk about Bader. Like, Bader wouldn't even be able to compete with like the top 10 over in the UFC. But it's like, unless you're actually having them fight each other, like you said, like, how would you even know? Like, ONE FC has some nasty fighters.
Oh my
Like, there's some
God.
really good dudes over there. Like, I'd love to see a ONE FC and Bellator crossover.
Ooh.
And then, or even, I mean, it'd be cool if the UFC did it too, but I don't think Dana's ever going to do that. He's not going to put his merchandise up against, other people. And then, yeah, it doesn't really affect those fighters' careers in any way, but it just kind of, I don't know, degrades what they look like, to
Yeah.
like the people, I guess.
Well, and like you said, if if a ONE FC guy knocks out a UFC guy, no one's gonna go, well, all the UFC guys suck. No,
Right.
like it's a fight, man. That's the whole point. And what better thing to talk about than this last weekend? The Volkanovski and Makhachev fight, where they were touting it like number 1 pound for pound versus number 2 pound for pound.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 won, and then he's still number 2.
He's still number 2.
Listen, I don't agree. I think Volkanovski won that fight. I think he was more aggressive, and I really think he was way more, just pushing the pace.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more Makhachev being more of a counter fighter in there. Somebody can get on here and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was like, I had him 3 rounds to 2. I would have been better off with a split decision, not a 4 rounds to 1. Like it was crazy to me. But I also said, I've never looked at Makhachev and said, you know what? He's the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world.
Yeah. No, me either. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because when Jones fights in 3 weeks and he wins, he's the number 1 pound. So I'm like, you can't just interchange him like that. Like, you can't just, Volkanovski.
You start claiming everybody's the pound for pound.
3 times. He beat Aldo. He beat Ortega. Like, he has had the murderer's row of people that he's had to fight. He's higher up on that list for a reason. I feel like they cheapened it when they're like, oh, he's number 1 versus number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And even looking back, like when Lesnar fought Overeem, like when they put him on the poster, like they made them taller. They were like, oh, 6'6" versus 6'5", and I was like, wait a minute, but they're the same weight. No, hold on. Like it was just, like somebody in the graphic department was like, move them up. There we go.
Well, it's the thing with the UFC is like every card has to be bigger than the next, right? Like, Dana was saying every time someone was interviewing him about the fight and how he wasn't promoting it and everything, he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, this is trending to be, one of the biggest cards like ever. Like even over, well, I think he mentioned like Conor versus
Chandler.
Was it Conor versus Chandler? He's like, this is gonna be, it's just like they have to always figure out something new to keep trying to raise the bar and making more money. So now you put, a champ versus champ fight, the number 1 pound for pound, number 2 pound for pound. Now it makes this fight the biggest fight. And then, what are you going to do for the next pay-per-view? Then you're going to have to hype that up and try to make that the next biggest fight. And that's just the job of the promoter, right? At the end of the day, that's what they're supposed to do. Just keep hyping up the next fight to give the fans a reason to watch. But yeah, I had it. Well, actually, I didn't really. I'm not really partial to anything. For me, it could have gone either way. Like 1 and 2 was 1 and 1. 4 was for Makhachev, and then 5 was definitely Volk. For me, it came down to round 3, and I think that's the round where Islam had him in that body triangle for like the entire half that round. But he wasn't doing anything though either.
Yeah.
And Volk is just punching him in the face, while he's on his back. So it's like it really just comes down to what type of judge you are. Like, what do you want to see? Do you want to see a guy who's being effective on the ground with his grappling and actually throwing stuff, or are you going to make him lose that round because he's just chilling there? which
Yeah.
is not a bad move for Makhachev. I was like, damn. I was like, I mean, if I was in a fight and I had control of him, I definitely would never let go of his body triangle. But I definitely would
He's
probably, yeah. But I'm definitely not going to be like over control. Like I'm trying to finish the fight, so
yeah.
I'm not trying to just like get to the next round.
Well, and I know Volk was like talking to him the whole time. He's like, "Oh, you said you were going to submit me. Like, what's
Yeah,
going on? What's going?" Like, that's a baller move right there. Like, that was pretty funny because you're right. There is no point system for submission attempts. If you
hmm
go for 18 arm bars, you don't get control. Like, that's just, oh, you went for it, you went for it, you went for it.
right.
So, like you said, round 3, and again, a split I would have been fine with, but when they said 4-1 on one of those judges, I was like, oh man,
Yeah, that's why I
no.
think they need to add like advantages. Like in jiu-jitsu tournaments, they have advantages. So like you get points, or if you get like a near, like you almost submit somebody, like you come close, and the ref thinks it's close enough, then you get an advantage. So the advantage comes down to if the time ends and they both it's 2-2, whoever has the most advantages will win that
Yeah,
draw,
that would
right? If
be
it comes to a
perfect.
draw. So I think what you do is you do like quarter points, or a half point or whatever you want to do. So like, because I think it should be the same thing for takedown defenses. Like if this dude shoots on somebody 20 times and you stuff 19 of them or all of them, you
Yeah,
should be getting like quarter points. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So at least you've gained 1 point after 4 takedown defenses, because otherwise you're just favoring the wrestler. They shot 20 times on you. It looks like you're just being defensive, and so now you're losing because this guy's initiating takedowns.
hmm Well, and
You
that's the
know,
argument with a counterpuncher too. They're waiting for you, so they're not being aggressive enough, or or what are we looking at? And the problem is, I think the math part of that is what's really going to mess everybody up. We have problem right now with 10-9-8.
yeah,
Like
yeah. Because it's boxing. That's old. It's just the old
yeah,
boxing style, and it's not. Joe Rogan was just talking about in his podcast. He's like, boxing is just hands, so there's not like a lot of things that need to be judged or other
yeah,
little nuances going on. Like it needs to be on a different type of rating. Like, I mean, I wouldn't even be mad at like 100-point system, and you just figure out how much things need to weigh, and then you can like, add, like I said, like you get your submission attempts, uh, submission escapes, even.
hmm
I don't know. I mean, you'd have to definitely break it down, but I think it can be done. I just don't think anybody wants to change things because they've been doing it the same for so long. Like, in the MMA world, when it comes to like new things, it takes a really long time for them to catch on.
Oh yeah, and it's too much to change. One of the funnier things that I saw during that pay per view was during the Jimmy Crute fight. Obviously Benefield got a point taken away, and Bruce Buffer walks over on camera to the ref and goes, "It's a draw," and takes a step back before he announces it. And I was like, I don't think he realized the camera was right
It was
there.
right there.
And I heard it, and I've never heard him do that. And it made me laugh so much because it's not his fault, but he went over there. You saw him like checking the math, like, I'm not saying the wrong thing, so do it again.
hmm Yeah,
Go.
yeah. It took a little while.
So, I mean, going back, so now you've gotten a lot of opportunities. Obviously coaching now. And being at Kaizen with Coach Vince. Talk about how that's factored into your life and how you make that work with your schedule, because you already had a busy schedule before. So
Yeah,
how are you making all that work now?
yeah. It's kind of like one of those things where I get to get paid for doing what I love to do anyway. Um, I wouldn't say necessarily teaching, because that's obviously a new role for me. Newer role. It's not like it's the first time I've taught a class before,
Yeah.
but being a coach and like having these guys call me, they call me coach, and they come to me with like, questions about problems they're having. It's just a little different. I just took two of my guys and we went to like our very first jujitsu tournament. Like they've never competed in grappling at all.
Hmm.
And it was awesome to like watch them do things that we've learned in the gym that we've done. Um, so like for me as a coach now, also breaking down moves that like, because a lot of times like you can ask a lot of fighters, not all fighters make great coaches, because they do things very well and they can do all these moves and whatever it is, but they can't explain how they do it.
Mm-mm.
because they're just, you ask them, it's like, hey, how do you do this? Whatever, you do this a lot really well. And they'll be like, I don't know. I just do it. And you get that a lot. So now me having to be a coach, I do run into that a lot of times. Like I don't even know half the time what I do when I'm grappling as far as like certain situations until I'm doing it live. And then I'm like, or I figure out what I want to work on. And then I'm like, oh, I remember this pass, even though I do it all the time. It's like, oh, I forgot all about like these little details. It's
Mhm.
it's the details that I get freshened up on every time I teach a move or have to dissect what exactly I do through these moves. So it's like I'm breaking down my own technique and how I do things. And then I'm also on YouTube, looking at like Gordon Ryan stuff and whatever, and seeing how they do things and see if I like their stuff or if I don't like their stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's a cool little detail. Let me add that in. Like I've done that a bunch. And then I have my other, grappling instructors that I can always message and ask them for tips and, you know, theories and stuff like that on like how they coach and how they teach their classes. So for me, it's increased my grappling uh, like immensely. I feel like even though I'm not under a black belt currently, like an instructor that I'm training under, I'm still a brown belt. I still feel like my game is still improving and I'm still getting better because now I'm searching out these, these DVDs and I'm breaking down things that I'm watching and breaking down just my own technique, like I said, and just really refining it. And now I'm like, man, I'm like, I've been doing this for so long, but it's so much cleaner now. I do everything, everything just feels cleaner. It's easier to get into because I've been showing it all week. For the past 2 weeks, we've been doing mount escapes. Like that's all we've been doing these past 2 weeks. And so going through all the little details of like how I do my mount escapes and when I'm trying to show them, I'm like, man, like I feel like my mount escapes have, gone up a ton as well now because I have to like I'm just teaching it over and over and over and over and just doing it and I'm getting reps.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking about before when you have the time to dedicate to it. And if you're doing the same thing for 2 weeks, and I think a lot of people get frustrated because they'll learn a technique and then next week you're on to something else. And you're like,
Yeah.
I don't remember that. But then like 6 months later, your body does it for you and you go, oh, okay, I got it. I got it. And it's that repetition that's gonna work. So I'm pretty excited to hear about the grappling increasing because you already had strong grappling background. Like that was already
Yeah.
something that was there. And I feel like when people leave the UFC, it's either oh whatever, screw this sucks, or you come back better, as a fighter, and you're
Yeah.
already showing improvements. You've already shown improvements over those last two fights, and I think Bellator, having you on this card, especially in Hawaii, the title fights, like there's some big fights on this card, so I think everybody's going to be watching, and I think it's kind of your time to shine in there. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I saw that Liz Carmouche is defending her belt. Um, and then there's the heavyweight fights, the co-main event.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I mean that's cool. And then my boy Kai Kamaka, he's fighting the next day on that second Bellator card. Because Bellator does like the double cards, so there's a
Yeah.
fight Friday and Saturday, and he's going to be on that card. He lives in Hawaii currently.
I mean,
He was
that's
in
nice.
he was also a UFC vet, so when I got signed to Bellator, I talked to him for a little bit and just got his opinions of Bellator, how he likes it and everything. So that was cool. Like already having someone who's already gone through the same transition I'm going through,
Yeah.
and he's already done it. And so um, I've been hitting him up lately, just trying to figure out like this Hawaii trip. And I'm like, yo, so where do I need to stay? Like, what's the move for this? Because he lives there and he's already fought in the Blaisdell Arena as well. So he's like, it's a really nice venue. So it's nice to have some insight.
Well, yeah, and it's not insight you can usually get from anybody, and realistically, it's not you can get from anybody in the UFC because
Right.
Hawaii with that untapped kind of market there. If I'm not mistaken, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm
No,
almost
yeah, they
positive.
never went. Max
Yeah,
Holloway kept calling for it. He kept telling Dana like, let's go to Hawaii. I don't know why they didn't. They got so many Hawaiian fighters that people love.
yeah, it didn't make any sense like at all. So I'm like, what's going on with that? So And you mentioned Liz Carmouche. Like, obviously, Liz will always have a special place. Like, she was the first fighter I ever interviewed. Like,
Oh,
10
really?
years ago. Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
and I interviewed her. I was sitting outside of a Starbucks with my phone on speakerphone, hoping that the recorder was
Shame on
picking up.
you. It wasn't a. It should have been a Duncan, bro.
It should have been I knew that was going to come up. So anybody who's a longtime fan of the show, there are actually 3 episodes that predated all the ones that you see right now that were not video. And Aalon was on one of them. And somehow 2 out of 3 of my episodes ended up at Dunkin' Donuts. And it was not my choice. I just want everybody to know that. It was your guys that were like, it was you, Jeremy Davis, and then I did Gian Herrera at Tigers.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
But I just remember going, how am I going to sell that I'm talking to these fighters at a Dunkin' Donuts right now?
I was surprised that Duncan just let us chill in the corner too. Like,
Dude,
I don't know. I feel like they would have kicked us out eventually. They didn't say anything. No, they didn't care.
No, the people were really confused. And then this little, remember that little kid like came over and her mom was like, get away. Like,
yeah.
So, but that was a
good
day.
We got to do it again. We got to do it again.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know, man. After that chest beat down I got from Doug, I don't know if I want to play it. Jeez. So anybody who doesn't know, obviously we know each other. We live, in the same area. One thing I got to learn about Aalon over the course of that interview was his love for anime and the fact that he's a very good chess player. He won't say he's a very good chess player, and I won't say it either, but it's the truth. So, couple things. So, in those past few years, like, are we still on the anime train? Like, is that still a focus of yours? And what have you been watching?
Yeah. I love anime. They're like Saturday morning cartoons. Especially because like My Hero, I'm watching My Hero Academia right now, and that comes on every Saturday, the new episode. So it's literally Saturday cartoons. I'm watching, as an adult, I'm watching that. I watched Chainsaw Man because Chainsaw Man was dope. I'm currently watching Mob Psycho 100. That's for me, like now, like if you want to consider like any of the newer animes, because Mob Psycho is, that's probably that's top 10 anime all time for me right now. That's how good it is. Yes, and I'm talking about like it's some really deep like emotional stuff in there, and I'm not gonna tell you how many times I cried, but I've cried a few times. So, yeah. So I'm gonna tell you that's a good one to watch.
See, and I love that because again, over the years, people have started to realize that like there's way more to fighters, and I know it sounds cliche, but there really is. And, Israel Adesanya did a really good job of kind of bringing that nerddom, I'm going to call it, to it. Mighty Mouse did the same thing. Streaming and playing video games and really like showing that like, hey, I don't just train, go to sleep, wake up, train, go to sleep, train. I've got other hobbies, I've got other interests. So, putting you on the spot for the chess side of it, did you watch The Queen's Gambit?
Oh yeah, on Netflix.
My God.
Oh, it was so good.
So good.
Yeah, and I didn't know. It was based on a true story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was decent until I started watching that, and I was like, these people study everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they know literally everything. Did you hear about it was Lex Friedman, and he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about how they cheat, how certain people cheat in the chess thing, and they, talking about the vibrations.
Don't say it. No, go ahead.
Let's just say
everybody needs to hear this because
they basically
cheat too.
They use Morse code with a vibrating device of some sort, and it goes in their butt. And they're sitting in the chair, and they feel these vibrations, and it's their coach is telling them whatever they need to do. Like he was saying how like a lot of times what they'll tell like the really high level guys is they'll just say things like, really look at this move. And I guess that means something to them, and they're trying to see like, okay, there's a different way here, and then they can do whatever they're doing. But you're just sitting there just getting this vibrating coming up your butt.
I remember them catching in like I ended up watching it on TV, like one of the professional ones, and you could tell like they would just get up and walk away for a while, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you can't leave. Now we all know.
Really?
That's what
I
it
never
looks
saw.
like.
I never saw any. I never saw any of the video. I didn't really even look into the. I just heard him talk about that, but I never even looked into it after that. I was just
Yeah,
like, man, it's
I
crazy.
didn't see any of the ones that were you know, contested about, the talking about, but watching chess online is it's not the most interesting game to watch. I love chess, I love pool, I love watching darts. Like if you've never watched darts on TV, that stuff's
Oh,
so
darts.
entertaining.
Darts is lit. I've seen some crazy stuff.
And you're like, you talk to somebody else and you go, "Oh, did you see that?" And they go, "No, I don't watch that. I don't care."
Watching darts. Come on, dude.
So I was gonna ask. So you're fighting at 55 again. I was jumping right back into it.
Yep.
Are you gonna stay at 55? Because you seem to have been
Oh
bumped
yeah.
a little bit. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. I can't get anywhere near 45 anymore. I I mean, I can get up into the 90s pretty easily. Um,
Oh wow.
so there's no way. Like I knew like after I fought Spike, that was definitely my hardest weight cut I've ever had in my life. I mean, I was on the brink of death. Like my cheeks were really sunken in, my eyes were sunken in,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember coming out of the session, doing my 2 tub sessions. Usually, I'm going to be on weight after those, and I was still like a pound and a half over. And I remember coming out, and I was like, I need to take like a half-hour break before I can jump back in the tub. So I took a half-hour break. I jumped back in the tub. I made weight, and then I was really sick that week too. Like I keep telling my girl I had COVID. She's like, "You didn't have COVID." This because like this is literally the week before lockdown. So I didn't really sleep well that night. Like I had that. If it wasn't COVID, it was definitely bronchitis. Because like every time I took a breath, I'm just so I was up all night. It was pretty crappy, but it is what it is.
Well,
Yeah, I just can't. I just can't do that weight cut anymore. It's just too much, dude. Like I'm
well,
if get anywhere near down there, I'm just like lightheaded, just like throughout the normal day, just like sitting on a chair, and I'm just like sitting there. I'm just like, dude, I'm lightheaded right now, but it's not time for me to eat. So
well, in bringing up Spike, so I'll bring up two things. I know you were probably excited when he lost his next fight because it was a Tampa guy who beat him, and Billy Q.
no, I mean, I'm never excited about anybody losing their fights. I don't think like that. But obviously, I was super excited for Billy to win.
Yeah,
Because
maybe I should
Billy's a
have said
homie. So
it.
some people
Well,
I know they definitely were happy. They're happy. They're just like, oh yeah, I'm so glad he lost. I'm like, all right, it is what it is.
well, Spike fights in Bellator now.
Well,
Just
I think he's going to Ryzen. That's what he's trying to fight because he fought there one. He fought for them in his last fight.
yeah,
And
he fought for it was Bellator the last time, but
oh, was it Ryzen before that one?
yeah. So I think he was popping
Oh,
in and
okay.
out. So, but I
He
wouldn't
likes
mind
fighting in
seeing that again
Japan. Yeah, running back.
in
Yeah,
Japan.
you never
I know
know.
you don't want to travel, but
In
in
Japan. I don't know, Japan, dude. I mean, I would love to go to Japan. I mean, I love anime, but I just love Japanese culture. Like I've grown up, around Japanese culture like my whole life, and more so like when I was a kid. But
yeah.
I've always been, captivated by it. So it'd be really cool to go to Japan. I just know that flight is just crazy. It's like a
What's your
day of
favorite
traveling.
what's your favorite aspect about Japanese culture other than anime? Like obviously that's the easy.
Uh, yeah, I'd say just like the respect. Like everything's about like respect and honor. Now obviously they can take it to like the extremes as well with like, you know, disrespecting someone's family or not living up and honoring your family correctly. I know it can go like there, but I love samurai. So like samurais are all about like, well, samurais are weird, man. They have an honor thing and respect thing, but they also are thieves and they break the law a lot and I don't know. It's kind of that duality, right? It's like you can be, this, respectful, honorable person, but at the same time, like kill everybody in the village. There's like these two things, and they're very close to each other. I think that's kind of part of it.
I mean, that's an amazing way to look at it because obviously people know what a samurai is. Anybody knows what that is, but really what they stood for. And they were mindless at times. They were like, "This is what you're going to do. Go do this." It was all about honor, and there was no conscience attached to it. So, like you said, they could do some really messed up stuff and be like, "Well, that's what
Yeah,
they
it's
told
nothing
me to do."
personal.
Yeah, it's nothing personal. Sorry, man. Like, didn't mean to kill your whole family, but part of the job. So this took a weird turn. I love it.
Hey, it wouldn't be a normal podcast if we were talking about samurais and killing villages.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not Joe Rogan, but that's the most Joe Rogan has ever been mentioned on my show. But it is funny because anytime I've ever told anybody I have a podcast or video show, because people get mad that I call this a podcast, they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, is it like Joe Rogan?" And I went, "No, no, it's not. He has 4-hour segments." I was like, I couldn't do it. I can't even watch it. I think I watched
Yeah.
like 20-minute clips, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm good. Because they
Yeah,
just
clips are really good.
yeah,
I'll listen to it though. I mean, I definitely listen to. I won't be in one sitting. Obviously, it's usually when I'm in my car. I'm usually podcasting, so that's
yeah.
usually how I catch up. So it may take me, you know, 2 or 3 days to catch up on a Joe Rogan podcast and get through that whole one podcast because, like you said, it's like 3 hours long.
Yeah. You're like, okay, well, I guess this is what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah.
But breaking it up makes sense. So, kind of talk about the sponsor side because I always make that joke. I've been making that joke for years where I'm like, talk about your sponsors since you're actually allowed to do that now. So,
Yeah.
talk about how important that was for you to get that back. Um,
Um,
going
yeah.
into that.
I guess it was just kind of like it wasn't like I felt like, oh, like I don't know. When you're in the UFC, you don't even think about it because you still have sponsors, but they're outside of,
Yeah,
like fight week. You can't wear any of their stuff, and then you got to figure out what your arrangement is with these people that are going to sponsor you because you can't have their logo, which is what companies really want, is their
yeah,
logo on TV or on the fight. Um, and so when had the ability to get sponsors again, it was kind of just like, oh, I can get sponsors for this fight. Like that was literally what I thought of, when I started looking for getting my first fight after the UFC. It was literally just like, oh, I can have sponsors again. Okay, like let me start searching around, post about it, and start bringing them in. But it wasn't like I said, when I was with the UFC, it was never like I was thinking in my head like, ah man, like I don't have sponsors. Like this sucks. Like I can't put them on here. Like I said, it's not that you still don't have the opportunity to get them. It's just a little harder, and you're probably not going to get as much as you would putting their logo on your shorts and stuff. But
exactly.
now, yeah, it's cool. Now that I can definitely make way more with sponsors now because I'm able to put them on my banner, on my shirt, on my shorts, do shout outs for them all fight week and stuff like that. So it's cool. It's cool to have that option back.
Yeah. And I mean it's not just the monetary value of it. It is the support because you have people who have been helping you from the beginning who you want to support back and it's the easiest way to do that. You know, it really is like that millions of people are going to see a business or a product that have never known it existed before that day. So it's really exciting for you to be able to do that for them. So I don't think many people look at it that way that you're actually helping them a lot too. So
Yeah, no, that's right.
So talk about the sponsors you have because I'm gonna help you wrap it up here. But talk about like who's been getting you through this camp and who's been, making sure that you're ready and hopefully get to take a long vacation after this
Yeah,
one, after
yeah,
being on
exactly. I don't really have a ton of sponsors yet right now, but I do have some consistent ones and ones that have helped me out for multiple camps, especially because of December and that the November and December cards falling through or my opponent's not showing up. I did have sponsors going into those fights, so I didn't get to, live out, I guess, my side of having them on my, and being able to shout them out. So, Angry Elephant Tattoos, Gene Farmer and Beth Farmer, they've been, with me for years now, and they've always taken care of me, and they're probably one of my biggest, definitely my most consistent sponsors. They fly out to all my fights, so they're always there with us, for the fights. So post-fight, pre-fight, we'll go eat breakfast in the morning, fight day. We'll go eat dinner after. So they're super awesome. I can't thank them enough. Outside Bar Howard here in Tampa, it's a local bar off of Howard Avenue, and Platt. So they sponsored me for the last fight, but like I said, I didn't get to walk out with anything, so I never got to actually like live up from my side. But I hear they have really good wings. I'm gonna run up in there and get me some wings, and post about it. So be on the lookout for that. Crucial Colors, my boy George, he has a auto body paint, or like a paint and body shop. Like they'll restore your car. Man, they do such a good job there. I've taken my car there before. I've taken my girl's car, and he's always down to sponsor local fighters, not just me, but just other fighters in the area. And I think that's really cool when you get a local business that's like trying to help support, these fighters that are up and coming, or they're already where they're at. So Crucial Colors. I got the hurt. I have a family. I have a lot of friends and family that just like the Hirsch family. I've known them since I was like 6, and they'll just throw me a check just to help with the fight. They don't ask for. They don't have a company that they're trying to like, put out there. They don't need me to throw their logo or anything. So usually, like if you look on my fight banners, I'll have my normal sponsors, and then I'll have a bunch of names on there, and all those names are just usually just donations that they don't have a business or anything. They just want to give me some money to help with my camp. So I make sure I throw all their names on there. And so, at least even if they didn't ask for it, it can be kind of cool. They can see their name, on the banner. Other than that, can you think of any more? No? Okay. Yeah, I think that's about it as far as my sponsors go. I'm sorry. My my strength conditioning coach, Freddie, he has Black Line Athletics. That is the strength conditioning program that I'm under, and we've been working since the Contender Series. That was actually our first fight that we worked together, and so if you see me getting strong and swole and whatnot, it's because of him. I still train with Coach Danny over at Def 4. We got a bunch of killers over there, so we want to look out for them. I coach over at Kaizen, under Vince McGinnis, train under Vince McGinnis. Coach Mahmoud is still over there, MG Wrestling. And yeah, I think that's about
it. Well, and it's great to have that kind of support, and you have that, it's not just a cross-training aspect. You literally have different walks coming in who all have the same vision, who all have the same idea and wanting you to be the best, but also being able to show your talent to other people. We talked about you being coach. It's a weird thing when somebody starts looking at you as that person, and you're like, wait, I don't know how to tell you things. And then you have to start walking them through and go, okay, I got this. Like, I know what I'm doing. But like you said, not every fighter is a good teacher. It's not. They're not always a good, because they've done it so many times, they can't explain it to you. So I understand that completely. On our side, so just for the podcast, we've got LaBarbara Cubano, amazing beard care. That's why my beard looks nice and shiny. Fat Boy Jiu-Jitsu, I'm pretty sure you've seen them before. He's out of Orlando. We have at Tim Makes Knives on Instagram, makes custom knives. So he's a good buddy of mine, that bladesmith. So if you guys have any special requests, like hit him up. He's definitely looking to challenge himself. We've got Berto's Bake Shop, some incredible baked goods over in Orlando. And then my newest sponsor, it's Tales of a Concert Junkie. You can go to talesofAconcertjunkie.myshopify.com and use promo code Quiggin Out for 15% off your order. It's a lot of gear about mental health and music, and how much the two are intertwined, and how much they really connect people and save people. So they've also got some other ones where people will be a little bit maybe offended by, but it's good stuff. So they don't like politics, and I don't know about you, but we don't talk about politics on the show. It's the only rule of the show, if we haven't ever said it before. But last but not least, you can go to quigginoutpodcast.com. get yourself a cool shirt like this. But more importantly, Aalon, dude, you've got a Bellator debut coming up in Hawaii. I wish you the best of luck, man. And you know what? Let's go get some wings and play some chess because there's a board behind me that needs to play.
Awesome. That sounds good, man. I thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, brother. You take it easy.
All right, man.
Hey, guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe, little bell, keep you up to date on all things Quiggin Out. Thanks again.